Good evening, Hawks fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Atlanta Sports District. I am your host, Russell Spence, coming to you after a 111-99 victory over the hobbled New York Knicks in tonight's game. They were without some key players. They're without Josh Hart. They're without Karl Anthony Towns and without Mitchell Robinson. But that does not alleviate the fact that we had a wonderful, wonderful output tonight. Played very well, especially defensively. I was very proud of the defensive effort tonight. And we'll get into kind of what I think went right. But I want to start with the offense. The offense did struggle just a tad. Again, only scored 111 points. This is a very good defensive team. And they, quite honestly, threw looks. Again, it's these these 4 eyes looks at Jalen Johnson. And that made life a little difficult. He did not shoot the ball well today, but because of that, other players were able to step up. Onyeka made a lot of shots. We had a lot of kind of spread around offense in this game, and it made it where, quite honestly, by the time the game ended, they didn't know really who to throw their men at, and that kind of allowed us to close the game because they kept trying to throw 2 men at Jalen, but then they realized, if we don't close out on this person, like we got our sprint out there, and then they'd get beat on a closeout. And we created some good offense later in the game because of the actions they were throwing at Jalen, but it did make Jalen's overall point total and efficiency numbers not super great for today's game. Offensively, I do think that we moved the ball very well. I think we don't move the ball as well as when we have Trey, but quite honestly, I don't think that you can even expect that. We have the best ball mover in basketball on our team when Trey plays, and so yes, the ball is going to move better when he plays. That's a no-duh kind of response. But I do think that in games like this where we're able to kind of mitigate that loss of not having Trey, able to move the ball pretty well, maybe not as well as we would if we had Trey, but doing it pretty well, it creates some easier looks for us, and that's what ended up happening tonight and led us to have a successful night offensively. It wasn't a perfect night offensively, but it was a successful night. We had a good number of assists, we moved the ball well, pretty decent turnover number, shot the ball pretty decently. The only person who had really under their baseline offensively was Asa and Jalen. So now let's move to the defense. Like I said, the defense was really wonderful. We're the first team to hold the New York Knicks under 100 points this year. They've been a wonderful offensive team, and it's all started with Dyson and Nikhil. Again, we did another game where throughout the competitive portion of this game, which was the whole game, we only played lineups that included Dyson and Nikhil. So one of the two of them was on the floor at all times, and that made Jalen Brunson's life very difficult, the same way it just did for Anthony Edwards the previous game. Again, these are things that I think we should continue when Trae Young comes back. A lot of times when we put Trae Young back in the lineup, we change these things that are going well. And so I never think that you should, have something going well and then be like, we're getting our player back, so we're going to just, pop on out and not do that anymore. We did play Zach more throughout the game today, but he didn't come back in the fourth quarter again. We keep doing that. I don't like that. That's the thing that I will say is Zachary Richaussee is one of our better defenders, and he really helps us to sustain defensive output for a long period of time. And when he doesn't come back in for the entire fourth quarter, A, his minutes end up being too low. He only played 22 minutes tonight. And B, the defense does suffer from it. And we saw in the fourth quarter they began to come back and start hitting a lot of their shots. And I'm sitting there during the majority of it going, well, if it was Zach on the floor instead of Veet, they're probably not getting these quality of looks. Again, they had a bunch of injuries tonight, and so I don't know exactly what could have been in terms of, if they played all their players. But when you have a really good offensive team and you make what I perceive to be mistakes about personnel, when players play, how much players play, good teams attack that with very precise attacks. They know exactly what they're going to do. When you play Luke Kennard too much, they're going to attack it. When you play Vít Krejci too much, they're going to attack it. When you play Asa Newell too much, they're going to attack it. In tonight's game, we were able to mitigate Asa having probably his worst offensive game of the year by Asa really playing well on the defensive glass. Now, his defense proper was still very bad, but the defensive glass was so good from Asa that we ended up playing well in his minutes. But again, that's with no Mitchell Robinson and with no Josh Hart and with no Karl-Anthony Towns. They're probably 3 best offensive rebounders and 3 best post scorers on their whole team were not there. And so when you're playing a team that has a full strength roster, I think Asa is still a huge negative defensively, and he's not that much of a positive. He does not need to be playing right now. I know we've won the last 2 games. It does not matter. That still makes it when he plays over 10 minutes, we're 5-9. There's a reason that's happening, and it's not a coincidence. And so those are the things that I would like to see. I think that because we continued with the rotation allocation where Naw and Dyson stayed on the floor, that helped us to have a good defensive output for this specific game. But in the future, I think giving Zach more minutes again and playing Mo over Asa will give us the best probability of having success defensively. And both of those 2 things, playing Zach more and playing Mo over Asa, do not cripple the offense, where you can still have a very similar offensive output while also having a well-improved defensive output. I think that's the future for the Hawks. I want to see us move in that direction. In terms of the Knicks, if they don't get healthy, it's going to be bad because it was the Jalen Brunson show throughout the whole game. And when you had players you could throw at him, it was very similar to the Minnesota story. You have players you could throw at Jalen Brunson, and he's the only person who can score. You're going to have real problems, and that's what happened today. I mean, they had people I don't think most NBA fans have ever heard of starting. I mean, they had Ariel Hukporti starting, and then Trey Jemison played. They had Mohamed Diawara. They had all sorts of just, who in the world is this if you're not an NBA guy? I know these players generally, but I can even say I've maybe seen them, each one of those played maybe 5 games total in their career. If that's the guys you're depending on your center rotation right now, good luck. And so I just really hope, for the Knicks' sake, that they can get healthy, because if not, it's going to be really bad. I don't like the Knicks, but I also don't like seeing players hurt. I think that what I would like to have happen is the Hawks to be full strength, and the Knicks to be full strength, and the Hawks to just be better than them. That's what I would like. I don't like seeing players injured and sitting out and things like that. Karl-Anthony Towns was out with illness, but I never know what that means. At this point, I think that some teams just put that down no matter what, because I keep seeing it a lot on these injury reports, and I go, is there just like a flu outbreak in the NBA we're going right now? Like, what's going on? Because too many players are out with illness. It's happening a ton. We had just last week with Zach and Jalen both missing games because of illness. You're like, okay. I think that basically they're like, we can't put down rest, and there's no actual injury, like their ankle isn't hurting, so we're just going to say they have the flu. I think that's what's happening a lot. Moving into the player-by-player portion, we'll start with Asa. Asa did not score in 11 minutes. He had no rebounds, but again, his rebounding was amazing because he was tipping it and fighting, and the ball, I still have a huge problem with the way that the NBA tracks rebounds. If your player does not collect the ball, it doesn't count as their rebound, even if they're the one who fought for the possession and tipped it to their teammate and all the boxing out and did everything right. They don't get a stat in the stat book for rebounding on that play. I think that is stupid. And so I know you probably can't change it, but there needs to be another metric we look at for defensive rebound rate, because tonight Asa was fantastic on the defensive glass. He had 1 assist and a turnover with 1 foul, and he finished the game with a net 0. Again, when you're able to have proper play on the defensive glass, you're able to stay in the game in those minutes. If you don't, if you're playing really bad defense, you're giving up offensive rebounds left and right, and you're not scoring, you're going to have very negative plus minus. But again, tonight he was able to kind of sustain that. Next, we'll talk about Kristaps. Kristaps had a rough one. It looked like a player who hadn't played in a while, and this is only his second game back. He played 17 minutes. He had 4 points on 1 of 8 shooting, 0 of 3 from 3. He had 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, and 4 fouls, and finished the game +2. Now, he did not shoot the ball well, but we're starting to do something with KP that I really like, and it's that we're refusing to let him get pulled up into the action. So the Hawks play an up-to-touch switching style against screens. So what will happen is, let's say, Jalen Brunson's coming off a screen, Onyeka will step up, he will force Jalen Brunson to take a dribble backwards, away from the rim, like hard hedging, forcing him to go backwards, giving time for Dyson to either fight over, or they switch it, and now Onyeka is guarding Jalen Brunson, and Dyson Daniels switches on their center, and then they'll try to switch on the back end. There's other things they can do then, but no matter what, that center has to be able to get up and force that guard to not turn the corner. He hedges very hard, keeps him away from turning the corner so that we have time to reestablish our defense in a positive manner. When we were doing that with KP, when KP would step up to the level of the screen and try to hedge, it did not work. He was too slow-footed. The guard would turn the corner, and then we don't have a rim protector at the rim because KP's up to touch, and he's got a free reign to the basket because he's turned the corner. That's not a recipe for success. So what we did tonight that I really liked is we basically refused to let KP get pulled into the action. If somebody went up the screen at the top of the key, the other big followed. KP just stayed on the baseline and I'm going to be in this tertiary defender where I'm guarding the rim no matter what. I'm not moving. I am the rim guy. And I enjoyed that because then, with the lineup they had on the floor, you're sitting there going, oh, if you want to kick it to Kevin McCullers and have him shoot a 3 instead of Jalen Brunson getting to the rim or whatever, I'm okay with that. I would give up a Kevin McCullers contested 7-3 guy running at him 3-pointer. And that's what we gave up tonight. And a lot of times McCullers wouldn't even take it. There's a lot of opportunities where that was very successful. And so I thought the defense was really successful when we kept him on the baseline. It worked really, really well. Next, we'll talk about Luke Kennard. Luke played 21 minutes. He had 12 points on 4 of 5 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. When he shoots, he's valuable. When he doesn't, he's not. He finished the game +5, played very well. Keep shooting the ball, Luke. Really like what I see. When you shoot it, I like what I see. When you don't, I do not. Next, we'll talk about Vít Krejci. Vít played 29 minutes. That's pretty high. Not going to lie. I'm not sure I love that. He had 8 points on 3 of 8 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3, 4 rebounds, and an assist with 1 turnover. And he finished the game +15. Really high plus minus. Defense was pretty okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. And quite honestly, when he's on the floor, teams have to guard him a different way than they're guarding any other player on our team right now. And that gives a lot of driving lanes for Jalen, for Onyeka, for Naw. These players are able to get to the rim because you can't leave Vít. If you leave Vít, he's proven he's going to make it. And so that's been very, very valuable. I just wish he played better defense. And I think that when you play really good teams, they will attack that defense very heavily. Now moving to the starters, we'll talk about Zach next. He had 22 minutes, 12 points on 4 of 7 shooting, 1 of 5 from 3, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, and he was +3. I think that if he had been on the floor in those times where we made the runs, that I think he could have been on the floor when we were kind of closing the half and we were closing at the beginning of the fourth quarter when we kind of got it out to 20 some odd points. I think if he'd been on the floor then the plus minus is higher. He had a good many of his minutes early in the game. We seem to be doing that. We give him, he'll start and he'll play a good bunch of minutes in the first half, and in the second half, he just doesn't play very much. And so I would just like to see him play more. I think he's really playing well. He shot the ball well today. He scored the ball well. He was fantastic defensively. I really like what I'm seeing. I just like to see him play more. Again, we have a very good record when he plays more than 24 minutes. So keep playing him more than 24 minutes. Again, if he played 26 tonight, I think that's a huge difference in the game, and I think we beat him even worse. Moving on, next we'll talk about Dyson. Dyson had 38 minutes, 11 points on 5 of 8 shooting, 0 of 1 from 3, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 turnovers. He finished +5. That +5 does not tell the story. He made Jalen Brunson's life absolutely horrifyingly miserable, and it was beautiful to watch. Great defense. He attacked. He, kind of played downhill a little bit better, and I really hope that he can continue to attack this pressure that they're putting on Jalen, because he's one of the players who can take the ball and just go. And so I like seeing that when Jalen sees a two-man look and he gives it to Dyson, Dyson just creases the rim and just lays it in. I go, where is that every other time? Like, please, let's go. Like, do that more. Next, we'll talk about Onyeka Okongwu. Onyeka played 30 minutes. He had 23 points on 9 of 16 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and he was +11. Played fantastic. Absolutely destroyed their backup centers that they had in the game. He played great on defense. He shot the ball well. He was a stud tonight. And that's the way Onyeka does. If you don't put a real player on him, he's going to destroy them. When he does have a real player on him, he might destroy that guy too. But that guy might destroy him as well because of the size difference. But tonight, you're sitting there going, these centers have nothing for Onyeka Okongwu, and he just dusted them. It was beautiful to watch. Next, we'll talk about Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He had 34 minutes on 23 points. He had 9 of 20 shooting. Very high number there. And he was 3 of 10 from 3. He had 4 rebounds and 3 assists with 1 turnover. Good turnover to assist ratio. And he had a +8 in the game. Again, the defense was wonderful on Brunson. I wish he was a little more efficient with his shot, but he could, clean that up. Sometimes that just happens. You get open looks and you just miss them. People miss shots. We're humans. And so I just really thought that he played quite wonderful today. I like this thing that we're going to where no matter what, one of the two of them is on the floor at all time. That is what I would do for the rest of the year, for the rest of both of their careers in Atlanta. At all times, one of the two of those guys, Dyson and Nall, are on the floor, no matter what. And lastly, we'll talk about Jalen. He had 38 minutes, 18 points on 7 of 14 shooting, 1 of 3 from 3, 10 rebounds, 11 assists, 4 turnovers, and finished the game +11. He also had 2 steals in the game. Defensively, he played better. Offensively, he moved the ball very well. He was our engine throughout the game. He kept the ball moving as well as possibly he could have. He absorbed the pressure from the two-man looks pretty well. But again, when they do that, a lot of time the shooting does drop in efficiency, which makes sense. If you have 2 dudes that are constantly trying to stop you, your efficiency is going to go down. That's the reason why I think he's best in a play finisher role, where Trey absorbs the pressure of 2 men coming to him, and he gives it to Jalen in an advantageous position to attack and score. That is when Jalen is at his best, and that is when Trey is at his best. That's the reason I think they work very well with one another, and that's the reason why I want to see around those two. I want us to go very defensive, and I think that would work out very well. Moving forward, the Atlanta Hawks have a 2-game little mini-series against the Toronto Raptors. Toronto played very well at the beginning of the year, have slowed down a little bit. They're still 5 games over 500. Very good basketball team, very physical basketball team. And we play them in a back-to-back tomorrow in Toronto. We'll play them at 7:30. Hopefully we can get Trey back for that game. I would love to see him back. And I honestly think that we just need to continue to do these small things around Trey, like making it where if Trey's on the floor and Jalen's on the floor, no matter what, at all points of the game, either Trey or Jalen's on the floor. Making it at all points of the game, either Nall or Dyson is on the floor. Playing Zach a little bit more, playing Mo. I think doing these things will make it very advantageous for us. But if we go back and just say we're just going to keep running back the same rotation we were running, where we're not going to really think about what lineups we're putting on the floor. We're not going to think about the fact that we have this really bad lineup playing at this time. You have to be more cerebral about that stuff. You have to be more intentional about what you're doing in your rotations. And I think we might be on the track to fixing that, and I really hope we are. We're playing a lot better than we were during our losing streak. I hope we can continue to turn it around by making these positive changes to when players play and who is playing. At the end of the day, I hope that we can continue to turn around. I don't know what will happen, but we'll be along for the ride. Like, comment, and subscribe here to the podcast. Tell a friend about it if you have somebody in your life that is a Hawks fan. Shoot them the podcast and see their thoughts on what we've got going on here. And as I always say, above all else, I hope you have a great day.